All right, here we have the Al Pacino film review. I just did Robert De Niro's Irv oeuvre, as it were, and this is kind of the runner-up to De Niro in terms of popularity, Italian American stature in Hollywood and Broadway sometimes, um, acting. I would go so far as to say that Al Pacino is probably my all-time favorite actor in terms of the ferocity of his performances throughout the years. I just think he's got so many like De Niro is a favorite for sure. Let's not, be around the bush, but just cutting to the chase, Al Pacino is my favorite actor because he Alfredo Pacino or whatever, because he's not afraid to embarrass himself. And I think that is something that is so endearing and it's kind of rare in a lot of great actors. You see it in character actors, but you don't see it with like an actor of like considerable magnitude, like Pacino. Jack Nicholson can be kind of like that, but Jack Nicholson's also an egomaniac. I think Pacino is a little more of a bipolar hothead. I guess I don't know. It just feels to me like he actually respects the character, and he's not just trying to make himself look good. And that is so welcome, I think, in Hollywood, and I think it's part of the reason why he's runs the Actors Guild. I mean, he's part of the leadership for the Acting Guild uh, of America, whatever they call it, the AGA, Screen Actors Guild, right? Something like that. Anyway, so without further uh, pomp and circumstance, I'd like to I'd like to jump into some movies without further ado, right? So we have House of Gucci. I just saw this last year, believe, or maybe the year before. It's recent. But his performance in this was not really anchoring down the film all that much. He was in it a fair amount, but not a ton. And he had recognizable shots. The shots are very much like focused in on him. He lit up, the emotions in the room. Definitely like a solid performance and a very fascinating character. Like, he was the patriarch of the Gucci family, the Gucci business empire. He kind of ran the show, and then he gets pushed out of the picture, and he ends up being a tragic figure in the smaller context of the story. I think for compared to everything else he's done, it's not great. I think it's probably a C. Um, but I think that's about average. But I think it's still good. Like it's still like noteworthy. Anyway, uh, average in Pacino's world is probably noteworthy. Let's do some other ones. I'm just gonna go find ones that I have seen because some of these are just ones I have not wanted to see or have perhaps not even heard about. I've like two for the money. I have not seen this one. I don't even think all the movies I have seen are on this. Like, is this Training Day? Okay, well let's just keep going. Scent of a Woman. Um, so Scent of a Woman is an A for me. I think Pacino steals the show in this. It really centers around his performance. It's so vivid and memorable. Like he really doesn't pull any punches in any scene. He's entirely vicious throughout the whole film, and altogether sort of just like this cruel, tortured, doggedly fierce human being, and yet the movie is not really about a world like that. So it juxtaposes him a lot. It reminds me somewhat of like Uncut Gems, but it has more dignity than Uncut Gems. And I think his character really steals the show, especially at the end, where he has a great monologue that is worthy of the ages. So yeah, Son of a Woman. I think he did get an Academy Award for it. I think he got Best Actor. So for me, that is an excellent '90s film. I give it an A. Yeah. Hope I'm not in over my head. All right, up next, Chinese coffee. I actually have going. This is going to be the one that I'm going to watch next. I literally have it in a YouTube tab open next. Well, it's in this browser, and this is actually a significant film to mention right now because it was his directorial debut, or it's a film that he notably directed, which he doesn't tend to do, and he also acts in it, and he plays a very like odd fellow and who has a sort of a mercurial reputation. And overall, I think it's a pretty fascinating film, but it's sort of flies under the radar for most people. Okay, let's keep going. The Carlito's Way. This is another one that's a 90s flick, an early 90s flick. I think it's 91, 92, something like that. Almost a late 80s movie. Really kind of on the margin there. It's hard to categorize the time that this movie takes place because it's based on a book. So there's a sort of timelessness to it that's embedded into the fabric of the milieu. And yet the top ranking I give it. Top ranking is A. Is This is an incredibly good movie. It's so good, in fact. I It's sorry, I'm like speechless. This movie is like Scarface, the spiritual successor to Scarface. I think it's probably a movie that um is probably a movie that what do you call it? Carlito's Way is a movie that is not really easy to like the first time you watch it. And it seems like a film that it shouldn't really even be praised. I actually think it's one of my favorite movies Pacino's ever done. It's got a lot of pizzazz, a lot of swagger in the gangster character, and the lead role is really challenging if you understand the nuances of his the expectations that people have for him. In his world, he really is this hardened criminal that has to find reformation within himself, and yet the world that he gets released from prison, and the world that he's now sprung back into doesn't care about who he thinks he is now. They just want him to be a heroin dealer and a good one, and he has to kind of deal with his bad reputation. And it's a movie about a guy trying to redeem himself, but he ends up getting kind of slaughtered for it. Uh, and it's a very unusual personality in film because you tend not to watch movies about this kind of anti-hero gangster type guy who has like a downfall. It's because he's very tragic, and so we tend not to watch movies like that with this very tragic figure. Still, the Pacino's acting is so good, and the ensemble cast is like Luis Guzman's in there, John Leguizamo's in there as well. So is Sean Penn, who's probably the second best actor in the film. And there are so many characters just in the whole environment of the Bronx, or I guess it was Spanish Harlem. I can't quite remember. I think it's Spanish Harlem or the Bronx. And it's like the Puerto Rican version of Scarface. Scarface is Cuban, and then this one he's Puerto Rican, and it's significant because Pacino did spend a lot of time in the Bronx. I think he went to high school there and probably lived there at some point as growing up. And so, as a formative time, the Bronx there was sort of like a cachet, and I think his knowledge of the sociology of the Bronx is quite good, and it really comes to light in this film, and you see that he knows different personalities, and Luis Guzman's acting is quite good, quite appropriate, I should say. So yeah, I think altogether, an insanely good a job in acting wise. It's not the easiest character for a guy like Pacino to do because he's trying to portray a personality that he kind of grew up maybe dealing with, and not a personality that he's sort of found himself becoming. And there's probably some friction there in terms of his ability to sort of portray that person. But at the same time, it's more refined, I think, than Tony Montana. I think a better acting performance than his iconic Scarface role. And again, it's a spiritual successor to Scarface. So he does Carlito, unlike Tony Montana, is more mature. He's older, and the film is directed by Brian De Palma, just the same. So I think it's actually a really fine film. And people who don't like this movie, just watch it one more time and you'll get it. And honestly, even though I didn't love it the first time I saw it, I respected it. So that tells you more than enough to get you to go and check it out. Anyway, up next, um, The Irishman. The Irishman. I did this in a De Niro episode, and I will say that, like I said in the De Niro episode, Pacino was the better actor in the film, even though he was in less scenes, and it's because he had higher stakes work to do. Now, I think De Niro was really good because he really good because De Niro had to do. I mean, De Niro, I always feel like he cries, in movies, and that's supposed to be like his big acting trick. But I always forget that when I'm watching the films, there's a lot more like smaller expressions that he does. And so I'm probably throwing him under the bus a little because it's hard to actually remember all the subtleties. And De Niro's father was a painter, quite I think a very well-known one, who worked in like North Carolina and places, and who also was called Robert De Niro. And I think the actor De Niro tries to be like a painter. He tries to be very subtle with his sort of micro expressions, as it were. And I don't know if Pacino's doing that as much. I think Pacino is going for the gold with his acting. He's not really trying to be as elegant. And so I think De Niro does have a better philosophy in a way, but I don't think it's necessarily as effective in the terms of it being memorable and significant to the story. So it's I don't know. I don't want to say De Niro's acting is too much like window dressing, but I just don't because I really believe it enhances a movie and he always steals the show. But I just feel like he doesn't have the same punch with his acting that Pacino usually has. Now De Niro has a lot of punch, but it's not as effective as Pacino. Uh, it's more refined in a way. Maybe more and but still reliable. I'm not. It's a subtle thing to talk about. It's just Pacino is sort of like a dog on a leash trying to break off the chain, whereas De Niro is more like a cat. Um, it's kind of how I'm more like a maybe a bigger than ordinary cat, perhaps a wild cat even. Anyway, up next. So yeah, the Irishman, I give it a B because I just thought better than House of Gucci, but like not really like his best movie in terms of his acting. Um, you know. And then up next is Serpico. Serpico is a brilliantly directed and acted Sidney Lumet film from I think early 70s, like 74 or 3 or somewhere along those lines. Possibly earlier, maybe even later than that. My memory is like kind of like not great for this film. I haven't rewatched it in a while. But I will say that it's a striking movie. Like you watch this, you're like, wow, this is a really serious movie. It's a little like his version of Taxi Driver, um, and it might exactly be that. And I just felt like he's so unhinged and so energetic and so kind of inspiring in his ability to like command the room that this film has got to be an A. I mean, it might be his best performance that I can think of. But then again, there are a lot of scenes in this film where he doesn't really vocalize as much, and it's hard to remember because the scenes are so intense. Yet he's not necessarily doing a lot of talking. He's kind of reading the room, looking around. A lot. All eyes are on him. So there's this idea that it's better his best performance, but I think probably not altogether his best performance, just because he does have a lot of moments where it's sort of radio silence on his part. Okay, but the film it's by itself is excellent. Any of those Sidney Lumet films are are like gold standard. Okay, up next, up next is Heat. And I also did this for the De Niro one, and this is one of the rare films where I think this is also an A. I'm a big Pacino fan, and I think like the De Niro version, like in the De Niro episode that I did, you know, De Niro is more of like a supporting actor in this to Pacino. Pacino really, is driving home the film, and De Niro is like a second in command. But at the same time, De Niro is a lot more intriguing. I think Al Pacino is easy to read, and he's an exciting actor to see on stage. But in or on film, on camera. But in this particular movie, De Niro is probably more of the enigma because his character, while he's acting, isn't as demanding necessarily. His In terms of energy spent, he is more of a person of suspicion, and he's more of a mastermind. Whereas Pacino is, I think, a fairly middle of the road sort of detective most of the time, and then he has these impressive moments of genius that kind of litter the film, but you don't necessarily associate him as like when the first couple times I saw Heat, which is directed by Michael Mann, I didn't think that Pacino was actually all that good at being a detective, and then I realized it dawned on me that he's actually supposed to be like this genius detective, but it wasn't super clear the first time I watched it. Whereas De Niro is very clear what his role is, and I think De Niro should get credit for that. His communication is always like impeccable. Whereas Pacino is actually supposed to be, it takes a while sometimes to understand. However, I still think his performance in this is an A. I mean, he was just off the chain in terms of quality and pretty believable. The believability is probably not as good as in Serpico, but he still was a very engaging and convincing actor. Convincing is a strong word. I would say engaging and compelling. Okay. Devil's Advocate is up next. Devil's Advocate. This movie, I actually know someone who worked on it. It's a pretty okay movie. Like, I don't hate it. I didn't really find it to be like, like a classic, but it is. It's got some funny sort of moments, and Keanu Reeves is in it in one of his earlier sort of films. I mean, he was before The Matrix, so for me, that's an early Keanu Reeves film. For others, it might not be. And at any rate, There's a lot of like dead air in this movie. Like there's a lot of just like like dated kind of shots of Manhattan that sort of work but sort of don't. I think if you remade the film, it could be very convincing. But in this particular stretch of time, it just feels like they're trying to tell you something that no longer really makes you feel anything. Now, the actual acting, beside, and I just mean in terms of the shot selection and the production design and all that. I mean, it's just kind of a dated style, but the actual acting is cool, and Pacino is on his game, on the top of his game for sure. I don't think it was necessarily his a movie that he thought was super amazing, but it was probably a film that he felt like would add some variety to his career and probably enrich his acting style. So I give it a B. It's respectable, but the movie itself is a little worse because of its age than the actual performance by Pacino. I just want to clarify that. And his character is really unusual. So the acting wasn't, it could have gone either. It could have gone different directions, I think. Uh, as a final word on Devil's Advocate, I do kind of feel like someone else might have been able to do that role better, like a Christopher Walken or someone. So just bear in mind that it might have been a better movie if they had someone a little more fitted for that particular role, someone who played that type of personality more so. John Travolta, perhaps. but but Al Pacino was good. It just I don't feel like he was the perfect fit for that movie for Devil's Advocate. Anyway, up next is Scarface. Let's do Scarface. Everyone likes Scarface. Such a veritable classic. It's sort of like the primordial um trash gangster film. It's just really such a trashy movie that you feel like you're kind of like living in like the future and the past at the same time and not really living in the present. And it's just exciting. There's a kind of ecstasy when you're sort of imagining what it's like to be Tony Montana. And at the same time, it's a totally fucked up story. You would never want to live like that. So it's a very out of left field kind of film, and it's also just like a tour de force, like a total perfect movie. Um, I think Tarantino talks about like the perfect movie as a phenomenon, and Scarface in a way is like that. I don't know if it's really the perfect movie, but it's close. It's got all these bells and whistles that kind of work in synchrony, and it doesn't really have too many dull moments. And from start to finish, it's always fascinating. And then by the end of the film, you're just like you're almost falling off your seat with excitement. So yeah, his acting, I would say Pacino's acting in this is superb. It's got to be an A. I mean, he's larger than life. He's at his most larger than life in this film, and this film probably defines him more than anything. And honestly, it's kind of crazy to think that he went from playing Michael Corleone in The Godfather, which was and still is an iconic role, to this movie where he's playing a kind of different ethnicity almost, and he's in a very similar role, but he's his personality is no longer cool. He's a hothead, and he still pulls it off. It tells you how great this guy is as an actor. Uh, okay, here's one that I haven't seen, but I feel like I'll say stuff about it. Cruising is a William Friedkin directorial film picture where he kind of is an undercover detective that has to find out about murders in like the gay community. And there's like, and I mean like male, like gay bars, gay clubs. What do you call it? S&M kind of stuff, leather dungeons and things. I don't really know. I haven't seen it, But I just feel like maybe there's some Judas Priest playing in this film. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. I don't know anything about this film. I was going to watch it for a William Friedkin tribute, and then I realized it was just a little too um weird. Like I didn't really know if like I didn't understand what the point of the movie was. It just seems a little like a little wacky. However, I will say that from the clips I saw in preparation to actually viewing the film, Al Pacino's performance does seem solid. So while I haven't seen this film, I do think Al Pacino did probably a reasonably good um, character. Okay, up next, Godfather Part Two. The Godfather Part Two is The Godfather Part Two is I mean I should do the first one. So let me find the first one because I haven't seen Dick Tracy. I didn't even know he did that. So you learn all these funny things. A lot of these ones I haven't seen. Um, but The Godfather Part One. Okay, well I'll say a few. I know you don't want to hear me just blab about The Godfather, but I will say that while this film isn't revolving around Al Pacino, because Marlon Brando does steal the show, I think Al Pacino is um more integral to the plot. His character is kind of is effectively the lead character, and there are some scenes where he does have to kind of have a show either a mixture of composure or agitation or el- elan even. Like I feel like he's got sort of a medley of emotions in this film, but I don't think it was extraordinarily demanding. Um, so I will give his acting in this particular Godfather a C, because I just don't remember it being okay. Maybe a B, just because I probably don't remember all the best scenes. I'm sure he had some really good moments. They're just kind of like brushed under the rug in, in comparison to Brando. Uh, Godfather Part Two. From what I remember, he was a lot better in this one. He was the focal point of the film. You could say Robert De Niro also was, but I think really Pacino was. I think his relationship with his brother was kind of the big dramatic fulcrum, and I think this he might have been an A in terms of acting in this, especially the way he confronts Fredo. But honestly, it's probably a B. I just don't think his acting was really like what the acting style he's known for. Um, I don't think it really is showcased in the Godfather series, which I don't know. I think it was such a serious movie to be a part of, and keep in mind the director was really young. I don't. I think that the Godfather Part Two is the God the Godfather Part Two is basically like a slightly better version of Godfather Part One in terms of just the performance in respect to the performances by Pacino. Godfather Part Three, I want to say that he was better in that one as an actor. Uh, could be wrong. I don't think he is entirely that different, even though the movie was somewhat altered compared to the first two. Uh, and I think he's kind of at the B level for all three, to be honest. Just from my memory of it, I'm sure if he were in the room, he would say that those movies were actually a little better than how I remember them, or maybe even a little worse, just to you know, give me some humility. But I overall, I just can't really speak to whether or not any Godfather is an A or a B or a C. I think they might be in the ballpark of low A, high C, and anywhere in B. I don't think they're his best acting performances. I will say that I don't think they're his best, but they're certainly, you know, fine works of performance art, like most of his films that I've seen. At least there's some I haven't seen that I don't particularly care to see. Do, 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 do. Where is this? Where is this? Where is this? Where is this? The third one. It was. I mean, I don't have time for this. Who has time for this? Let me find it. Oh, I think I just threw it up there. No, Godfather Part Three. See, I okay. So, whomever assembled this list did not include that movie, which is a bad sign because I think there's some stuff that probably is also missing that would be nice to have. The Merchant of Venice. Oh man, I have to see that one. That one is one that's kind of. I always forget that he was in that. I think he might have done a Broadway portrayal of Shylock. So I'll have to go back to that. Sea of Love, dude. I don't even know what that is. That actually sounds kind of good. Is it like an action? I don't know. Definitely been in a number of films that. What's this? 88. He's been in a lot of stuff. I don't tend to watch films about like international terrorism, and I don't tend to watch films about like international like human trafficking or drug smuggling. I don't tend to watch like international like focused stuff unless it's like a James Bond movie or unless it's like a which could be a a flaw in my kind of persona as it were. I think maybe I should watch more internationally focused sort of crime and action films. Uh, I'm probably have a deficit in that department. Okay, admittedly. Man, so I guess I haven't seen as many as I thought I'd seen as a percentage or as a fraction. Uh, what's this? They don't have Dog Day Afternoon, which is like a big film by him. They don't really have like a lot of his best. Glengarry Glen Ross. Okay, I never liked that one. And he could have been good in that. I just never could sit through that movie. Which is this? What The Insider? I also didn't. I found it hard to sit through that. I will say that his acting in The Insider is probably B level. His acting was good in The Insider. Um, The Righteous Kill. Oh, that's another film with both De Niro and Pacino, which I probably saw and forgot about because it was so weird. Um, I would say like a C. Oh, I put Godfather Part 3 in F. No, it doesn't belong in F. I think the acting is like a B. Um, Jack and Jill. Oh, he was in this film and it was stupid. I'll give this one an F. His performance was like irrelevant to anything about the movie. I wonder if they have the Ocean's 12 or whatever it was, the ocean film he did in that series. Because that one he was probably okay. I mean, it's been a while. I never really bothered to rewatch that. Okay, Gene Hackman and Al Pacino in Scarecrow. That's one I've overlooked. Okay, Franking Johnny. Heard of that? Don't know if it's Manglehorn. That seems like a recent one. Like almost like it just got released. I've not seen that. It looks kind of all right. Pacino Revolution. Oh yeah, yeah, he's cool in this one. This one he like has to. It's a little like The Patriot. It's a cool kind of film. I give it a C. Well, I give it a B. I give it a B because it is a pretty intriguing subject, and he is the star of the movie for sure. So without a doubt, a lot of these films I haven't seen are decent. Like The Merchant of Venice is probably pretty good in it. I'll put a lot of the ones I haven't seen and haven't seen. Uh, Manglehorn. Those are like the ones I really want to watch. Any Given Sunday, Frankie and Johnny. See, that one's probably good. Um, Dog Day Afternoon is not on this list. Donnie Brasco is though, and I think he probably gets an A for Donnie Brasco. His character is really out there, really larger than life. He does crazy, like so well. He almost like dignifies crazy where he shouldn't. I mean, few actors can actually do that. Maybe Anthony Hopkins in a different sort of way, in a demented sort of way. He does deranged. Anthony Hopkins kind of does demented. Those two, and Jack Nicholson, he does kind of charming crazy. He kind of blends the both of them. Yeah. So with Two for the Money, Hangman. I can't. The Recruit. Okay, The Recruit. He's decent in The Recruit. I've seen that. I mean, I'm not saying he's like his best movie. I would say probably like a C. It's a little heavy-handed uh for what it really is about. Um, but you know what? I'm gonna give it a B because I think that role was sort of unusual, and now that I consider it, he had a lot of good like sort of avuncular paternal sort of moments with facing with Colin Farrell that's not exactly in his wheelhouse as far as I knew. So it was a well executed film, just not a very high quality important subject matter or whatever you call it. Humbling. Okay, a lot of this stuff is stuff I would not expect. Deerfield, A Love Story. This is like you can't make this stuff up. These movies are so obscure. The Pirates of Somalia. I think some of these were meant to make more of a splash than they did, and they're just on here for like indexing purposes. Um, Glengarry Glen Ross. I've seen it, but I haven't seen like all of it, and I don't have a clear memory of Pacino in the film. Maybe I just haven't seen enough of that one. Yeah, City Hall. There's a few in here that I know, like in and Justice for All is not brought up. This is kind of a dog shit list if you don't have Dog Day Afternoon and Justice for All. I mean, those are like some of the better films he's done. Um, City Hall, that one looks kind of good, so I'll put that in haven't seen, along with Scarecrow, and yeah, and I'll just close out from there because ultimately, um, Walken and Arkin. I don't know who Arkin is. They're trying to promote this guy, Christopher Walken and the Pacino. That could have been a fun movie, and in fact, I kind of must have seen a preview for that at some point. I'll probably watch that soon because it seems fun. Two for the Money. That also seems fun. I'll put this in. Haven't seen. Haven't seen it to me just means I'm probably going to try to watch it. Jessica Chastain. That could be good. People I Know. Kim Basinger. That could be good. All right, that's it. I'm going to close out. I think I could probably redo this after I'd seen several more of these. It's sort of embarrassing, but at the same time, this list was made by someone else, and it didn't have like a lot of his best work. Um, sort of terrifying that those films weren't included. But I guess much of the same could be said about me for missing. I mean, how did I not know he was in Dick Tracy? How did I not know that? That sounds like something everyone would know. Um, and The Merchant of Venice, I probably should have seen that years ago. So at any rate, uh, I will rewatch Glengarry Glen Ross to see what exactly he's been doing in that film because it sounds like he might have like an important sort of role that's you know timeless even. I don't know. Maybe it's not timeless. Seems like it could be. All right. Good night and good luck. Take care, guys. I hope you enjoyed this kind of haphazard attempt at categorizing all of Pacino's films. By the way, a lot of these films would probably get an F or D if I bothered to see them. Just saying. Can't be entirely accurate with that statement, but I have a hunch. All right. Take care, guys.